And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED this weekend, May 23rd of 2015. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you. And thanks for joining us here as, geez, we're almost done with the month of May. Can you believe that, Joe? We're zooming right along here. And gosh, the weather's been perfect. Nice weather. Get a little bit of rain. It's I like things right now. And, of course, the real estate market, rental markets are all we're going to talk about today. Both continue to be, I use that word, robust.
Yeah, the market's hot, the weather's cool, and the rain is really welcome. This is typical May weather. I remember from many baseball seasons here in Southern Oregon.
Yeah, and when you say that, remember now, when you say that market is hot, remember it's hot for sellers right now. It's a seller's market. Buyers are having some trouble finding stuff again.
I'm just talking to the sellers today.
I know. Talk to me. That has been drilled into my head, and I know our listeners the same way in terms of what the market is doing, because it varies. It might be, we was talking about it. Sellers right now, the inventory is low, and they're getting multiple offers. For buyers, it's not so good as it was a few months ago, or 6 months ago. As you know that. Well, anyway, today on the show, Laurel Adams is here from All Cities Property Management, and guess what we're going to talk about today? Those wonderful, all sorts of things related to tenants. And what do you have when you have a bad tenant? Laurel says, what do you do to get rid of a bad tenant? How do you deal with a bad tenant? And I'm sure people who own rental properties, at some time in your life, you have had a bad tenant, right, Laurel?
Oh, I haven't had any bad tenants.
You have 300 properties you manage. I could have given you.
I'm making a joke.
I'd be curious, as to what's the percentage that you think is there? Of what you would call a bad tenant. I mean, is it 5% of the group? Is it 10% or maybe more? I don't know what that would even be. That's a good question, isn't it? I don't even know what that would be.
Our statistics at my office are very, very low. I can't speak for the group as a whole.
But of course, you teach this and you mediate all sorts of tenant client relationships,
and you try to get the right tenants in the right properties.
Well, anyway, that's all coming up today here on the Real Estate Show. We'll also update you on some new rules regarding fees for rental properties, and that issue that still comes up, Joe, marijuana, legal marijuana, and what does that mean for renters and landlords and tenants? It's still not clear. It's up in the air, and we don't really know where it's going. But we got to deal with it, right?
No, it's actually clear.
It is.
I'd rather be the real estate broker than the property management person when that comes.
Say that again. What did you say? It's clear now to us?
Actually, it's clear.
The marijuana. Okay. Well, we can't wait to hear the Real Estate Show coming up next here on KMED. Don't forget our shows. You can watch them at realestateshoworegon.com or on YouTube as well. Lots of things going on in the real estate market, that's for sure. And we thank you for joining us. We get together once a week here on KMED AM and FM to talk about all things related to real estate. And boy, there's a lot going on to talk about, as you know. Don't you dare go away. The Real Estate Show starts next here on KMED. Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED, AM and FM this weekend, May 23rd. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you. Thanks for joining us. We get together once a week to talk about all things related about real estate. And that covers such a wide range of things, from property management to loaning, appraising, building, all those kind of things. And that's what makes the industry so valuable and such a big economic force in our community. I don't think people still realize how much that is, Joe, but it's certainly, when you add it all up together, the economic impact of buying and selling, building, all those kind of related activities, remodeling, whatever it is, have a big economic impact with us.
And if you own urban or rural properties, we hook you up with the Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District, and those folks have a myriad of ways that they can help you be better consumers and users of your land and your property.
Well, next week here on the show, Guy Giles from Ditech Mortgage will be along. 2 weeks from today, we'll welcome Brad Bennington from the Home Builders will be along. And so a lot of good shows coming up for you here on each weekend right here on KMED. Well, we talk about rentals and property management. I can't think of, there's nobody better in this valley to talk about that than Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management. Hey, Laurel's been with us for, a number of years here on our shows as we approach that 6-year mark. Property management, there's so many things going on with it, Laurel. As you know, changes. I suppose what we've learned from you, so many things we've learned from you, and one of those is that the rental business, the rental part of this thing, it doesn't stay the same for very long. There's always changes coming, and the big key is landlords need to be aware of it, correct?
Correct.
All right. What do you got today that is changing for fees or whatever in terms of you want to share with people today? Because many people tell me, during the week, oh, that lady from that rental company, she's sure pretty good. And I said, yes, she is. She knows her stuff.
She's so good that she taught Landlording 102 here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I taught a certain law about fees. And I had also taught, and it was also talked at the landlord update class in Grants Pass. And one of our members said, Laurel, I just don't think that's right. I go, but yeah, look at the language. And I've already called a lawyer and I've already gotten, confirmation. Mm-hmm. So we called our lawyers on staff of the, on board members. And we all looked at it. And then we sent a note up to the legislature and asked for a clarification on that. And I'm wrong. So it's just real important to me to tell everybody I have good news.
You're wrong.
I'm wrong, and it's really good news.
Okay,
in the statutes, it talks about if you fine a tenant, you have certain things that you're able to fine for, like having a dog that's not supposed to be there.
Fine, fine, not fine.
So fees. These are so the fees so any fee that you're allowed to
charge extra.
Charge the tenant for with a warning notice. You have to give a warning notice first, and then you can do a fee and then a fee. There's it's in the statutes. So the way that we understood it was if you charge a fee at any time, it will disclude you from the opportunity to evict for that thing that you charged a fee for.
Okay. Let me follow that again. So
okay.
if I charge a fee for a pet, that's a simple one, right?
So I send you a note and say you have a pit bull, get rid of it.
Wait, but start over. I've rented from you, and it says no pets.
Right.
Okay, and then and then you find out that I have a pet.
Right.
As the landlord.
Oh,
right.
A pit bull.
I just use a pit bull as an example.
Okay, so you find out as the landlord that I have a pet in my rental property. And it's against my lease.
Correct.
Okay, take it from then.
So I'm going to send you a warning notice saying there are no pets allowed on this property. Please get rid of it. You have such and such a day, so many days to get the pet.
Get rid of the pet.
Yeah, get it off the property.
All right.
And so then they may or may not, and then the pet comes back, and then the second time you can fine them. Send them a $50 fee. Okay. By statute, you can do $50. So what we were led to believe in the way that the bill's not real clear, the way it says is if you charge a fee, you can't evict. What that wording meant was if you charge a fee, you can't evict at the same time. But it doesn't say that. So you can fine them and fine them and fine them. So you may send them 5 fine letters and fine them $50 an incident, which is 6 times or $300, and then you decide I'm done with them. Then send them eviction notice, but you cannot. And here's the clincher: you cannot give them a fine at the same time you send them an eviction. They have to be separate things on separate days. They can't be at the same time frame.
No, I'm assuming the person, the renter, is not going to pay the fines. Is that correct? If I pay the fine, do I get to keep the dog?
Well, no.
If you accept the fine, if you accept the money as the landlord.
No, because then you're sending him another letter telling him once again to get rid of it. I mean, no.
Okay.
You still cannot keep the pet.
You still have the right. Even if you pay the fine, you cannot. Right.
I have the right to continue to fine the tenant. Okay. But what we thought was the way the wording went is that if you fine the tenant, you aren't allowed to evict. It's just you can't do the both at the same time.
You can still evict the person for violating
but don't
the dog
do them at
thing.
the same time. If you do them at the same time, you're going to end up in court. The judge is going to say, "Excuse me, you can't do them both at the same time."
All right. What are other fees that you can add on? I mean, I always think of a dog. I mean, the dog is a simple one right off the bat. But what other fees are there?
There's only 6 fees, and I don't have it in front of me. But it's garbage.
Garbage.
Improper parking.
Parking violations, okay.
Let's see.
We know that animals and
not
pets.
Paying your utility bill.
Utility bills.
And there's a whole, we're not going to go into that one.
Okay.
Because that one's in the process of changing now, too.
Okay.
And the pet, and I'm missing one. Garbage, and there's one more.
But those are things that you can charge fees for if the tenant is not properly taking care of these kinds of things.
And all of those fees and those rules are in the Southern Oregon Renter Owners Association, in the state of Oregon rental documents.
All right.
So it's already in there for you.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's already there. You don't even have to think about it. It sits right there. These are the fees I can charge.
Now, how often do you, as a property manager, charge these kind of fees? I mean, do you see a lot of this, or tell me where you got 300 properties? I know you got experiences with some of this.
Let me put it this way: before this law came in, and they were so strict with what you could and could not fine for.
Okay.
When that law came into effect, all the property management companies were having an entire breakdown because they made a lot of money off this.
Off the fees.
Off the fees.
Sure.
And that's why the legislature did what they did. When I went and I pushed my button in the computer, because, we have these computers now, and it shows how many fees to date we've charged for this year.
Okay.
I found that in a 12-month period prior to that law, I'd only collected like $575 worth of fees. So when you're asking me, I'm saying no. And the reason is because people, how do I say this? I set a standard. I trained them. I set a boundary. And I didn't have to do too many fees because a warning was pretty much all it took, because I warned them and said, this is not okay and this is what's going to happen. So, it's your choice. Mm-hmm. It's either this or this. And the next time I will have a fee, and then I'll evict you.
But other landlords will just charge you the fee. Here comes the fee, and here comes this. You pay the fee, and they collect the fee and get to keep it. The fee doesn't go to the landlord. I mean, to the owner of the property, does it?
No, I don't think any
it would
property
come to the property management company. It would sound like if you're collecting fees.
Depends on what the management contract says.
I was just going to say that
it's all contract.
It's going to depend what is actually said in the contract management agreement between the property owner and the manager.
Right. So that's the first thing we need to clear up. Mm-hmm. The second thing that we need to clear up is the medical marijuana. Now, we had a law update class given by one of our attorneys, James Stout, in Grants Pass a couple weeks ago.
And James was on our TV show
yes, he was.
During May. I remember that. Yeah. So, he was a good guy. So what were you talking about? You're talking medical marijuana here, correct? Now you're talking, okay.
Well, the new marijuana laws. See, everyone's worried what the new marijuana laws are going to do to our property, because you can have a small, 6 ounces or 4 ounces? What's the ounces? How many ounces?
Well, the difference in Oregon in terms of how it's going to affect real estate is that, unlike Colorado and Washington and Alaska, Oregon's marijuana law that was passed allows an individual to grow 4 plants.
Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not just growing. It's how much can you have on you legally. It's like 4 ounces. I don't know.
I don't know what that is.
Anyway, the point being is now everybody can have a little marijuana if they want. So the question is, what does this mean to our rental properties?
Right.
Okay, and this is what has been the big worry. Well, the good news is the law is so messed up. There are so many dead end, it's like sentences that are not complete. The information is missing. It is such a mess, and everyone up there is arguing immensely on how and what to do with this. So we're years away from even straightening it out, number one. Number two,
and you're right.
It's just a mess.
And you're right.
Experience.
I mean,
it's a mess.
We were supposed to learn from those 3 states, weren't we?
That's my.
And they're fighting among themselves up there. They can't even figure this out yet.
But here's the better news. The better news is, regardless of what the boys and girls do up in the state, it's still federally mandated that it's illegal. BOLI still says it's illegal. It is not a protected class. Medical marijuana is not
it doesn't fall under the fair housing laws. Okay, which means you can't discriminate based on age, sex, all of those kind of categories. And nowhere does it say medical marijuana in the fair housing laws.
Exactly.
Well, what does that mean? I mean, what is your okay, all right, go ahead.
So because it's not a protected class, therefore, which is federal, and federal always supersedes and is the big daddy of all law.
It's supposed to. Okay.
It will. So because of that, we do not, have to accept medical marijuana on our property. We can also say no smoking, period, on our property. We now have a law that says that you don't even have, I can tell you cannot smoke cigarettes on my property, anywhere on my boundary.
Even outside, not even within the yard?
Within my property line. So it means, yes, I have a form that says you cannot smoke anywhere on my property. So if you want to smoke a cigarette, you have to go out into a city street or a city sidewalk. Literally.
Into a public area to smoke cigarettes.
If I'm a marijuana user, I'm not going to rent from you.
So my point is...
That's the point.
The point is if we still have the ability, and landlords do not need to lose sleep over this, we do not have to accept medical marijuana used, using marijuana like cigarette, recreational marijuana. It's not okay. We don't have to accept it. Keep it. The language that keeps all of that off your property is already in all of the forms that Sora sells.
Man, I can see a disaster coming down the line here over this.
Wherever you live, every city council and every county commission is going to impose their own restrictions on how it's going to work. And Medford is considering having you have to have it enclosed so the odor is not able to get out to the yards and things like that. You're going to have some substandards in each municipality.
The rental properties have the same. See, look what this topic does to us every time we start talking about this.
That point is we all go crazy and you can't have it at all.
We don't need to go crazy. That's what I'm saying, you guys. We don't need to go crazy over this. It's like there's something we don't need to be worried. Wait, stop.
Okay, all right.
We don't need to be crazy. This is federally mandated, number one. Number two, we have a lot of friends that people out there don't realize we have. Now the insurance companies are saying, oh, you have a rental property? If you have a tenant that's smoking or growing marijuana, we won't insure you. Now it gets
just becoming to be crazy.
And now it gets even better. The mortgage companies are saying, you own this property? Well, if you do grow sites, we will not insure you. And you're going to find clauses. They're already there, and some people don't even know they're there. There's little clauses that say you cannot grow any marijuana on said property, and if you do, we call your loan in immediately.
That is
would you like to? So. All I'm telling you is this is where we're going.
There's a huge due diligence aspect coming to this when you help people purchase properties. Even the owners of properties outside of the renters who are going to be really restricted.
And I just heard that. I heard that one the other day from a very reliable source. I
can imagine our listeners must just thinking, this is crazy. What are we going to do? You're going to have a lot of problems with this as a property manager. Because despite first of all, what are other landlords saying about this that you talk to other people? What are they saying about it?
They're doing what the three of us are doing right now. They're all getting excited. They're getting excited.
It seems like this could be, I guess maybe I'm crazy thinking that's going to be an easy way to solve all this stuff, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be.
I think we've seen from Colorado and Washington as well that it's going to be a work in progress for years to come. Neither of those two states have really dialed it in, but they've worked through a lot of things, and now we're going to make our own set of regulations and our own approach to it.
So you have a legal product that's going to be legal in our state, and an insurance company says that you can't grow it, so we're going to call this or a mortgage. What's a mortgage lender going to ask a question now on the mortgage application? Are you going to grow medical marijuana? Yes. Are you going to grow pot on your place? Are you kidding me? Are they going to ask those questions now? My gosh, it seems like they asked you if you have guns in your house or whatever this out. But
the point's kind of moot because it's mostly big money LLCs that are coming in to buy the properties to grow it. And they're buying with cash, and there's no mortgage company is going to get in their way.
Here's the deal. All I'm saying is that as of right now, and of July when supposedly this new law takes over, which is what everyone's concerned about, what I'm suggesting is, and what the research is showing to this point, could change tomorrow, but up to this point, it appears as though it's a lot about nothing.
All right. Well, good words, gosh. Every time we talk about medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, in real estate and renters, listen to what happens to it. This is what's so crazy about it. But good discussion, that's for sure. The Real Estate Show rolls on here on KMED. We're going to take a break. We're coming right back. We're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management. We're coming right back after this. Real Estate Show rolls on here on KMED, AM and FM this weekend of May 23rd. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you. I'm a principal broker with John L. Scott, and Joe's a broker with Remax Ideal Brokers. And we love talking real estate with you. You can contact us at email. We'd love to hear from you. It's Pete at realestateshoworegon.com or Joe at realestateshoworegon.com. You can go to our website. All sorts of information there as well. And I say we love to talk all sorts of real estate with you outside of the show as well. Next week here, we got mortgage lending with Ditech Mortgage and Guy Giles. 2 weeks from today, the Jackson County Home Builders will be along. And home building continues its pace here, doesn't it, Joe? I mean, I'm surprised at You know how much we got cooking right now.
Why does your introduction sound different than mine?
Why? What do you mean?
Principal broker. I don't have that in front of my.
He's being nice to me, Laurel Adams. I tell people I pass my principal broker's state and national exam.
That's a real accomplishment too. I'm really proud of you.
Don't you see his crown on his head? For gosh sake!
Don't you think I look smarter or something?
You
now?
do.
You know, I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, we're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management, and if you were the last segment, we talked about the use of medical marijuana or legal marijuana in housing and things, and Laurel, of course, opens up all sorts of can of worms. But during the break there, she still wasn't done. So you got one more thing you want to say about this. Okay, go ahead.
The only other thing that I thought was important is at this time, and this is one of the things they're arguing about up at the state level, is that the state can impose a lien on your property, the owner's property, for not paying. If you have a grower at your rental property and the grower doesn't pay their tax for their grow, then the owner's property will be liened. Okay? And
by the state, state is going to put a lien
on the property,
on your property,
and it'll be first position lien.
First position, even above those of tax, property. Well, it's a tax, I guess, property tax.
And it says that in the language, first position, which means your mortgage company will call your loan. So anyway, so one of the things that everyone has to understand is, I think what we'll do is right around July, after July 1, what we'll have is one of the attorneys come in.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll do a show on that.
We need to do that. Yeah. I think it's it's so evident by just our discussions that look how the three of us get into this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure listeners are doing the same thing around their own tables, too, having the same discussion. But, I mean, this is what you've told us today, though, Laurel. That's what's so discouraging
That's
to me.
my due diligence point. You have a tenant who is a medical marijuana grower, and he grows a big old crop and sells it all and just heads out of town without paying his tax. You just inherited his tax on that marijuana.
Exactly.
So if
that due diligence is really going to be important going forward.
But the growers who do this have to register and those kinds of things, so they, whoever they are, know who they are, where they are. But if I say I own a rental property, a rural property, I got 5 acres and somebody wants to grow there.
See, those are all the little definitions.
Same kinds of things that could go on there.
These are all the things that we don't know yet.
I mean,
and you as the owner who have nothing to do with growing that marijuana or processing or selling it could pay the tax on it. That's scary.
So we're done talking about marijuana.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about it anymore today. It makes my head spin, as I'm sure it does for a lot of people, because it's like we say, it's going to affect everybody, and we're not
in the
making
making until we sort it out.
So I want to talk about a bad tenant.
Bad tenants. Now, I can't imagine that ever happens.
That'd be people growing marijuana.
Or it's not. From what we've heard, it'd be people smoking a cigarette out in the garden out at your property, let alone having a recreational marijuana.
Cigarette, please.
Well, let's just do a case with a marijuana grower.
Okay.
Let's say someone in your property has 4 plants, and they say they're legal, and they want to grow their plants, and they need it for health reasons. So, first of all, when you have a bad tenant, you have to create a definition for yourself. So for every owner, the definition of a bad tenant is going to be a different definition.
Ah, okay.
Okay? There's no definition out there, okay?
There's no Wikipedia.
Yeah, there's no Wikipedia. So for some, a bad tenant is someone who doesn't pay on the first every month. On the first. I mean, I've talked to owners that say, I want that rent money on the first, not on the fourth, not on the second, not on the third. I want the first, on the first. And if you don't, I don't care if at first is a Sunday. If that owner doesn't get that check, they consider that a bad tenant. That's their definition of a bad tenant.
Okay.
To someone else, a definition of a bad tenant is, they're really nice people and they've been behind on their rent 6 or 7 months in a row and they always kind of pay me, but I think I'm getting tired of it. So I guess they're a bad tenant, so maybe I should do something. Okay. That's their definition of a bad tenant.
And not a very good landlord, by the way.
Two distinctly different owners.
I would just say that's not a very good landlord, and that person should not be in the landlord business.
Just different ways of living, different ways of opinions, and different. I'm not going to say they're right or wrong. Just different way of living.
Sure.
So you have to create your own definition. So for you owners out there, create your own definition within legalities, of course. And then let's use a medical marijuana person. So we're going to use that as an example.
So we're back to that. Okay. All right. You brought it up first here again.
Well, we're going to use that as a bad tenant example. Because it says in our rental agreement that you cannot grow marijuana on the property.
Okay.
Period. You can't smoke it, you can't have it, and you certainly can't grow it. So when you discover that, you have a certain period of time. Once you know that someone is doing something illegal, or you're aware of a dog being in the house, or some kind of
violation of the contract that you have.
When you have a certain period of time upon which you have to make good on that. So you can't let the dog stay there for 6 months and then decide, I don't want the dog there.
Sure.
So you have to act fairly quickly. I believe, here I am caught. I think it's 6 weeks. I think it's just, anyway, a month or 6 weeks you have, or 2 months, to actually do something.
You have to act now.
Yeah, you have to act now. So on the medical marijuana, so the first thing you do is, so how do you get the tenant to either, 1, get rid of the plants, or 2, leave the property? Well, initially what most people would probably do is yell and scream and get into an argument. And then you have a real pissing war going on between 2 people. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you should always do, and I've even neglected to do this myself, is I would send warning letters. Warning letters are great, but sometimes a phone call before the warning letter gets to the house is really a great idea. And you can do it lovingly, like, I got a complaint and I happened to drive by and I saw 4 medical marijuana plants sitting on the side right by the gate. Are those medical marijuana? Yes, they are. Well, we have an agreement in your contract, and I'm sorry, I just can't allow that. So, we need to talk about this. I really need them to be gone. Mm-hmm. And let it into I don't care whatever the infraction is. Give it back to the tenant. Don't tell them what they're going to do. Tell them that you can't live with that. Say, I'm not okay with this, and we somehow have to come up with a way to remedy this problem. And then shut up. Let them tell you what they can and cannot do, or are willing or not willing to do. But calling them up and say, I want those plants gone, I see them, I want them gone, the neighbor says they smell, and I'm really mad at you, get rid of them now. That isn't going to help remedy your problem.
It's not being a nice way to introduce it.
So the first thing you're going to do is probably complimentary, try to be nice, to try to come up with a solution, even though in your mind you may know that tenant's going. Work through the process.
Those plants or that tenant is going, one of the two.
What would happen if the tenant came back to you and said, well, look, Laurel, I'm growing these plants here, and what if I paid you $100 a month more for them to stay?
Well, that's your choice, isn't it?
Okay.
You could have an arrangement.
So you could do something like that, or something like that.
Exactly. I did have 4 plants in a backyard, side yard, and the tenant said exactly that. Okay, I'm almost ready. They're almost ready to be done. I've got about 2 more weeks till I harvest. Will you give me 2 weeks? And then I won't do it again.
Okay.
I called the owner. This is the deal. She said, 2 weeks. I want an inspection. I said, I'll do it. So in 2 weeks, I called back the tenant and said, I'll be there in 2 weeks on such and such a day, such and such a time. I'm doing an inspection and there will be no more. And I wrote a letter to that effect. So
you're always following up. That's
and documenting.
That's one of the really great advices that Laurel, I think, has imparted on us over these years is you need to document what you're doing.
Right.
Or you're going to lose. Or you're never going to, you're going to lose. Yeah. Simple as that. Okay.
You will lose. So you're going to send a warning and make a phone call on whatever the infraction that is occurring is. And then
we're up against the thing. You're going to have to hold those thoughts there, okay, how to do this, because you can deal with them, and not all relationships have to end badly with tenants and landlords. That's, I think, is the thing that I learned about it. These things can be squared up without craziness.
And the contracts usually explicitly determine what can and cannot be done.
Absolutely. The Real Estate Show here on KMED, AM and FM. May 23rd is our weekend. Hope you're having a great day as well, and we will continue right after this. Welcome to the Real Estate Show here on KMED, AM and FM this weekend, May 23rd. Pete Balecaster and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you. And don't forget, you can watch any of our shows at youtube.com, or also you can watch our shows online at realestateshoworegon.com. We hope you'll do. Lots of shows on there, I'll tell you that. Joe just did a TV show down at RVTV a couple of weeks ago. That's running right now.
That'll be playing, and it's online as well on our YouTube channel. So, hey, I want to give a shout out to all of our veterans. Memorial Day weekend. I got the great privilege to be in Corvallis on Memorial Day and share my brother's story and the hometown where he grew up. So very much in my heart and my thoughts are all of our veterans, your son, and all the great folks in my family, and all of those folks, men and women who have served.
Yeah, Memorial Day is Monday, and it's one of those sweet holidays.
Bittersweet. Yeah, it really is.
We think about that, and you're absolutely right. And Joe has done. By the way, Joe. Some people may not know that, but of course, Joe's brother was shot down in Vietnam. Back in 1972, and 30 years later, they found his remains. And Joe has been speaking. Well, you've spoken all over the place about this and the experience of never leaving one of our people behind.
And
the story of your brother is just absolutely stunning.
The closure that they brought for our family was just amazing. So. Yeah. And they're continuing to do so. Korean War, World War II MIAs are being repatriated, and their cases are being solved, which is just what a commitment. And the price that my brother and all of those folks paid deserves that commitment in return, and we should, as we struggle with our laws and our politics and things like that, we need to remember the sacrifice of the freedoms that we have.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that up there in Corvallis on Monday. I know you told me you were doing that again. Good for you. That's good to go. We're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management today on the Real Estate Show, and I can't even tell you the things that we've talked about today. You have to go back and listen to the show and go watch the show again, because it's you got a cornucopia of things, especially rentals, all things rentals and rental properties, from what in the world's going to happen with marijuana use and medical marijuana, legal marijuana.
Kind of stirs the horse every time she comes in. She's always got new cutting edge, the newest stuff that's on the horizon, and issues that are really of importance to our listeners, whether they be landlords or tenants.
We're talking about bad tenants, and I like that thing. Every landlord has a different interpretation of what a bad tenant is to them. That is really true, and there's no common denominator of what that might be. My thing would be a bad tenant is someone who messes the house up. That kind of
exactly.
That would be my.
So and by the way, I get phone calls. I get phone calls from owners, and they go, "The house is dirty. They don't vacuum." And I go, "Okay, so you're thinking about evicting them because they don't vacuum?" Yes. I go, "Well, do they own a vacuum?" "Well, I don't know. Have you asked them?" "No." Maybe they don't know that they have to vacuum once a week. Maybe they don't know. It's like the person, and I think I've told the story before, going into the household. It was Hispanic, and it was a non-English speaking family. And there was like a quarter of an inch of grease on the stovetop from tortillas. And I'm not being discriminatory here. Right. But they didn't understand that leaving a grease buildup on the top of the stove could cause a fire.
Sure.
So there's a little 4-year-old boy who spoke English, or I guess he was like 5. And so I interpreted with him and explained to his grandmother, who was at the house during this inspection, about the grease and stuff. And you know what? They just didn't know. They were from Mexico.
Sure,
they didn't know. She did not understand. And so I helped her clean it. And I showed her by taking my fingernail and doing this with the grease. And she was horrified.
Sure.
So sometimes we have to remember that sometimes people don't do things because they just don't know.
Right.
So you have to sort of emotionally, carefully suggest.
There's an art to that.
Let me ask you this, since you brought it up there regarding non-English speaking renters. I mean, I can imagine. 12% or whatever the percentage of population of our county is Hispanic, and other minorities. How are you dealing with the language barrier there? How are Hispanics? Well, I guess mostly Hispanic people. How are they able? Are they able to rent the way? I mean, they're protected certainly under fair housing laws. Tell me about what that is like.
Well, most of them will bring, and we ask them, because we don't have a Spanish speaking person at the office at the moment. We have had in the past. We ask them to bring an interpreter with them, and I actually ask the interpreter to sign the rental agreement also, as that they just say on a piece of paper, I understood and helped to understand what was in the rental agreement. Sure. But usually nowadays, most of our Hispanic families in our area, they have children that speak English.
Absolutely.
So they bring the children with them, and we interpret. I got to be honest, they're some of our best tenants.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Sure.
And as long as you can communicate and you show them what you expect of them, and you ask them to do certain things, they're very, for the most part, they don't want any trouble.
No. good tenants.
Yeah.
As I think all immigrants have been over the centuries in our country, that is really true.
So it's just I have to be honest with you. It hasn't been an issue for us.
It has not. That's really good to hear. I agree with you that many the kids are very good English speakers. Yeah. And they interpret it for the moms and dads. That is so cool, actually.
And the other thing is that I have a couple of vendors that are Hispanic, and so I call them. And one of my cleaners is a Hispanic. She's Hispanic and speaks English and Spanish. And I'll hand the phone to the prospective tenant or to the person who's sitting at the front desk, and I'll say, Esley, I have a Spanish-speaking person here, and they don't speak English. Can you talk to them? And she'll talk to them on the office phone right there for me, and then they'll give the phone back to me, and Esley will say, this is what they want, this is what they need. And I told them that they had to bring someone that spoke English since no one in the office, So there's ways to work that out. But anyway, So back to the tenant thing. So what happens is once you decide that there's something that you can't live with and the tenant needs to change their ways, even if it's not in the rental agreement, if it's something like that it's a new thing that you don't like, you can send them a letter and saying, a 30-day notice saying, I'm giving you a 30-day notice that blankety, 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 such as you cannot keep your car up on stilts in the front yard. If that's not on your rental agreement, you may want to add that, give them a 30-day notice. That's if you have a lease. If you have a lease, you can't change. But if you have a 30-day
month-to-month tenancy, you can change that.
And so most people now are going with month-to-month tenancies because it gives you more flexibility
for both the renter and the landlord.
Absolutely,
because a lot of times, renters want to move out.
Yes.
You have a lease, you can't do it. So month-to-month tenancy, although month-to-month tenancies tend to have a higher rate, a little bit higher rate. Maybe?
No, not really. Okay. Not anymore. No.
We're almost going to be out of time here, Laurel. So in fact, we are out of time.
Oh, okay. As usual, we didn't finish.
It's normal. It's just too much to talk about. Not enough time.
Jag pratar lite svenska, so if you have any Swedish clients, call me.
Not too many Swedish coming in here. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show this weekend here on KMED. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next Saturday right here on KMED AM and FM. God bless everybody.
Thank you for listening to the original Real Estate Show with Pete Belcastro and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys. For advice, guidance, or counsel on any of our topics, or to watch a replay of today's show, visit our website at realestateshoworegon.com. This show is sponsored by RE/MAX, Ideal Brokers of Southern Oregon, Ticor Title, All Cities Property Management, and the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. We'll continue our weekly quest to enhance the value of your property and to make you a smart real estate consumer when we gather every Saturday and Sunday on KMED for the one and only original Real Estate Show.